So, Hey Tomato said, I have zero skills, no programming skills, no musical skill, no art skill, none necessary to be a game dev, and I really want to be one, but the idea of spending 8 years to get good at everything seems a bit demoralizing, though I'll keep pushing. I want to make a game, I want to create a world, I want to tell a story. I feel like that's probably a situation that lots of people find themselves in, especially if they're sitting around watching YouTube videos about game dev. But I think there's something about the wording here. It's quite aspirational. You know, I want to make a game, I want to create a world, I want to tell a story, but that's all focused on outcomes, isn't it? It's not focused on like the day-to-day process of doing the thing, and you've sort of presented doing the thing as not being particularly fun or enjoyable. And I don't really know how to help you with that because, you know, I've always enjoyed doing creative things, and I'm not saying that as a brag. You know, I almost feel like it's practically a mental illness. I know lots of people who are sort of autistic or ADHD or have some combination of those two things like I do, and we do creative things to sort of soothe ourselves and gain some sense of control in a world that seems to want to kill us or drive us mad all the time. So if you can't see the pleasure in just sort of picking up a pencil and drawing some doodles or following a programming tutorial for a couple hours and seeing where it takes you, then I can't really help with that. One of the things that came across in your comment that I think we can touch upon here is that you do not need to make a game to build a world. You can learn writing or you can learn drawing and you can make a comic book or something like that. And one of the things I keep saying over and over again in these videos is that, okay, there are some skills that are specific to game development, right? Programming for games is one of them. Game design is one of them when I talk about game design as the interactive part of your game. But storytelling is a generic skill you can use lots of places. Visual art is a generic skill. All of these things are kind of things you can learn somewhere else and then apply to games later on. So rather than looking at games as this big scary behemoth of like requirements that you will take a decade to fulfill, just start creating other things. You sound like someone who's interested in world building and creating a kind of IP, if you want to call it that. You do not need to start in games if that is the thing that you're interested in, or if it is the thing you're interested in, start in Twine or Ren'Py or one of the engines that is very, very much focused on narrative and character and stuff like that, because you do not need to get into games to do these things. Right, can you see that? Let me just zoom in a bit. So right over there, can you see those big wind turbines? Often I look out at these, and because I'm a normal person, I imagine what role they will contribute to a sort of post-apocalyptic mythology. And I like to imagine that one day there will be sort of medieval knights who think those are angels, and they sort of worship them, and they have a three-pronged cross on their shields. And they kind of stand on the beach and they worship the three-pronged angels out to sea. Why am I telling you this? Is it because I'm a deranged person with a very shiny forehead? Well, yeah, partly, but I am doing this in my head all the time. I see things in the world and I come up with little fantasies and little bits of story and stuff, and then they may or may not get used at some other point. The thing I find interesting about this question, if it even is a question, is that there's a focus on world building, and the thing is you don't need to make a video game to build a world. I think if you're thinking that way, then the best thing you can do is just dive into the skill that gets you to that world building and that storytelling as quickly as possible, which is probably not making a game, right? Or it might be making a particular type of game. It might be learning Ren'Py, where the coding's relatively easy and mostly it's about writing and putting graphics together, right? When I was in my early 20s, I thought I wanted to be a comic book author. I wrote lots of comic books, actually. I wrote quite a few scripts. I wrote one long sort of dystopian sci-fi script that was like 400 pages long, and a bunch of shorts in a different setting. I didn't finish those things, but a lot of the ideas and stuff from them hang around. They come out in other things you do later on. You know, you might, I don't know, join a band 5 years later, and the idea from one thing comes into that next thing. So it's never wasted spending time learning one of the skills. And I think one of the things that comes up here over and over again is that making games, okay, it is a kind of hobby in its own right, and it is a craft in its own right, particularly the programming and the game design, the sort of interaction design. But all of the stuff that you can see and hear in a game, all of the kind of creative direction type stuff, that's not specific to games, right? You can learn illustration for something else and then bring it into games later. You can learn music for something else and bring it into games later. Rather than looking at this as like, oh, I want to learn how to make an entire game, but it's going to take me 8 years to learn all these skills. Build that world in your head and then find the quickest expression of that in a tangible thing. So to try and put that a bit clearer, I play tabletop role-playing games, which is why I have my UK Games Expo t-shirt on today. Sometimes we'll play D&D in like the Faerun setting, which is the standard D&D setting. The next step up is you do a tabletop role-playing game, but you invent the whole world. That's world building where you don't have to write a book, you don't have to draw any pictures, you don't have to have these other skills, and you can just practice that one thing, right? Some of the best games that I've had on this channel have come from people who are very clearly an artist first and a game developer second. You know, they've practiced getting really good at pixel art or some other type of art, and then they've designed games that use that skill set, and they've kept those games very simple because they don't want to have to do more artwork than they need, or they don't want to have to learn how to do specific types of programming. They start with one skill set that can be applied elsewhere, and then they make a game out of it later on. Your goal should never really be to be a game developer, right? You just need to try and do creative things, see if you enjoy them, and then as you move forward, sort of take opportunities to do other things with those creative things, you know? Like, one day some sort of publishing wizard is going to come up to me with hundreds of thousands of pounds and say, do you have a good idea for a post-apocalyptic series? And I'll be like, right, yeah, there's these knights, yeah, and they stand on the beach and they worship the wind turbine array out there, and they'll be like, great, you can just be creative without a particular goal of becoming a particular type of person or making a particular type of thing, but you have to learn to enjoy the processes. And making an entire video game is not really one process, right? There's programming, there's different types of programming, there's making art. So yeah, if you look at that as one thing, you're going to be daunted by it. You're going to want to not start. Making video games is an interdisciplinary thing. Most successful video games are not made by one person, and the sort of people who can develop all of the skills to make a good video game on their own are exceptional people. They are not regular, normal people. So cut yourself some slack and just start making something. Find a process that you enjoy doing and do it for the sake of it, because if you can't do something for the sake of it because it's an enjoyable process, you're never going to compete with the people who can and do.